On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, Keith and I talk about what the Sixers will do without James Harden. How will they survive? Who needs to step up? We'll dive into it all next right here at Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKED ON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKED ON. What's up, D?
What's going on, man? How you doing? How was your weekend?
It was cool. It was cool. Chilling.
That's right. No complaints. That's a good thing. Great weather. No complaints. It's all good, man. Welcome. You are Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia, alongside my co-host, Keith Pompey, Sixers beat writer for the Enquirer.com. We are here with you, of course, start of a new basketball week as the 76ers have 4 games, including the 2 on Saturday and Sunday upcoming this weekend, beginning tonight with the Phoenix Suns. We'll talk about them later. The Atlanta Hawks on Thursday, and the 2 games on Saturday and Sunday back in Philadelphia. But Keith, we need to also talk about and begin with what the Sixers will do without James Harden. So far, 1 game in the books after the information came out about his foot injury that's going to keep him out for approximately a month. And with that injury, Keith, we saw our first look at the Philadelphia 76ers without James Harden. And they lost to the New York Knicks. It was a back and forth type of game. Tied at the half, Sixers go up by 9 after 3, and then they wound up losing the game by 2. Had some opportunities at the very end of the game to lock it down and pick up the victory, but they are now 4-6. Embiid has missed 3 consecutive games with the flu-like symptoms that you talked about, the non-COVID illness, and Daniel House also missed that game on Friday night in the loss to the New York Knicks. Keith, what are they going to do without James Harden? Now, we know Tyrese Maxey can score. We saw that DeAnthony Melton can dish the basketball. He picked up 9 assists. That may not be the norm for him on average like Harden and his 10 assists. And even with the 22 points that James Harden collects, how are they going to win these games without James Harden? And for right now, with the uncertainty, at least at the moment, of no Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I think Joel's going to play tomorrow. Daniel House, I don't know. He wasn't at practice. Joel was at practice, and he did some conditioning, after the fact. Like, he played 3-on-3 full court with members of the player development staff for 25 minutes. It was crazy. They just kept running back and forth. I think what we're going to see, and they talked about it yesterday on Sunday, was it's going to be one of those things where they're going to have to go through Joel again. I think what we're going to see is the offense that they had before James Harden came. And they ran a lot of it last year where they feed Joel through the post. He gets the double, he gets the triple team, he feeds it out, finds the guys. So it's going to be a lot of space in the floor. As much as DeAnthony Melton had the 9 points and the 9 assists, he shot 4 for 18. It was times where Tyrese Maxey looked a little bit out of control as well. I feel like that right now they're better suited running through Embiid. I think that, you take less pressure off the other guys and it just seems like they wilted as the game went along. Don't get me wrong. Maxey had 31 points, right? Tobias had 23. My man had 9 assists, 9 points, Melton. But I just felt like that it got a little bit sporadic towards the end, and it just wasn't good basketball. So I feel like their best bet right now is playing through Joel, and that's what they're going to do.
Well, then, yeah, number one, when he's back, it goes through him. And we've seen it before. They had a pretty good record with them, with that team, without James Harden before the trade was made for James Harden going to Philadelphia, Brooklyn, taking on Ben Simmons. The difference, of course, there was you had the shooting in the starting lineup of Seth Curry, so they don't currently have that. That's a little bit of a different wrinkle at the other guard position with DeAnthony Melton, but Tyrese Maxey does it in a different way. He's more confident than he was in the beginning of the season as the year went along, so he'll be the second option instead of being the third or fourth option at that time, with both Curry and Harris taking over those opportunities. But I agree with you that it does, in fact, have to run through Joel Embiid, and we'll just see where his conditioning is and see how they can get through these games. That we'll talk about Phoenix later, but it's not an easy one. The same thing with the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta on the road, even though he'll have 2 days off, Thursday and Friday, Tuesday and Wednesday, pardon me, getting ready for that Thursday game. And then the back-to-back on Saturday and Sunday. So they need to start getting on track, Keith, because they are not. I'm not saying that they're falling out of anything, because we're only 10 games into the regular season right now, and they are 4-6. But they have to find their identity now. They have to find their way, and that identity will be going through Joel Embiid. But how will everyone else now play off of him, and where that second best defender, or maybe even the first perimeter defender on the opposite team, will now look at Maxey and try to take him out of the game and force Melton and Harris and Tucker, who will also be in the starting lineup, to beat them, where Embiid may get his, Maxey may get his, or shut them down. So, between the two, they may put up, I don't know, 70 points in a game, but where are the other points going to come from with this basketball team? So they need to develop the identity now that Harden's going to be out of the game for a bit, and see what they can do. I like the Melton thing. You're right. He struggled shooting. Though he played a good overall game, his shooting was just off. He had good looks. He just couldn't get it to fall on Friday night against the New York Knicks. I thought Maxey, normally when you see a guy take 29 shots for 31 points, you look at that and say, that was kind of bad. But we saw that he had some good looks too. Yeah, there was a run there in the first half where he was just on fire, and same deal in the second half where he had a moment there. He had a spurt where it just seemed like he could not miss. So they're going to need that production off the bench. George Niang has had a few good games in a row. He's put a string of good games together. Montrezl Harrell in the starting lineup for the Sixers on Friday played a pretty decent game, and you're just going to need him to continue to play that way off the bench. And the others, Daniel House, whenever he comes back, Matisse Thybulle, you saw Shake Milton continue to get run. Furkan Korkmaz starting to get some minutes. Also, this is going to have to be a collective thing for this basketball team in order for them to do so, because as we mentioned before, the East is going to be tough. Nothing has changed when it comes to that. The East is going to be tough.
Yeah, I agree. The East is going to be tough. And here's something else that we're not talking about, D. Right now, the 76ers, I mean, like you said, the things got to change. Right now, the 76ers are off to their worst start through 10 games since the 2016-17 season. Mm-hmm. And at 1-4 at home, they have the worst home record in the NBA. So, those are two things that they got to hurry up and get corrected now, because let's face it, in about 2 weeks ago, we were talking about this team contending, being the third best team in the East. Now, again, it's 10 games out of the 82-game season. But as you mentioned, Phoenix is tough. They got some tough games against Atlanta coming up. So, and then you're undermanned. So if you're not careful, you can continue to slide to that abyss, because they're not even right now, again, 10 games in there, but they're the 10th seed in the East. Mm-hmm. They won't even be eligible. 11th seed. They're not even eligible for the play-in game right now. Oh, no, they're 10th, but they still wouldn't be eligible for the play-in game. So it's kind of crazy.
They'll be eligible for the play 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Let me see. They're 11th. I was wrong. They're 11th, so they wouldn't be eligible.
So they would be out in that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but it's early. That it's cool. But look,
it's early. What? It's early, D. It is, of course, it is early, but at the same time, it wasn't supposed to be like this.
No, it was not.
It wasn't supposed to be like this. So, it's just one of those things. It's still early, but then there's some other teams that you expect them to turn it on too, like Miami, other squads. So, yeah, it just shouldn't be this way. But again, it's still early.
Yeah, and look, to your point of other teams will step up, then maybe others will fall back too, where the Cleveland Cavaliers right now, they're just playing phenomenal basketball. And while we expected them to be better with the Donovan Mitchell acquisition, maybe they won't be as high in the standings as maybe they'll fall back a little bit where we thought they were. Toronto now with Pascal Siakam out for a couple of weeks, maybe that'll knock them down a little bit. And in Boston, they're not playing up to what we thought they would be also. So we'll see, man. But listen, thanks everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On 76ers. Keith, when we come back, let's stay on the home court advantage thing, because I do have a question. Where has the home court advantage gone for the 76ers? That has been something that has been really good for them over the course of their 5-year run in the postseason. The last couple of seasons, not so much. We'll talk about that next when we get here, right when we get back here, Locked On 76ers.
For now, let's talk about Prize Picks. The thing I like about Prize Picks is because, you can think of things and you can talk about like Kevin Durant and Luka Doncic. And I say this all the time, but I'm saying it so you guys get a better idea. I'm taking Luka Doncic to score more than 26.5 points. LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds. Kevin Durant, sorry, Kevin, but I'm looking for you to have less than 6.5 assists. And Steph Curry to have more than 3.5 three-pointers made, right? So here's it is. This is how Prize Pick work. You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they will go score more or less than their Prize Pick projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against the other people. It's just you versus projections available. Prize Pick offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes the NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, college basketball, on and on and on and on, right? Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals, right? So this is what I need you to do. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com and sign up and play the daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive the 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. I'm telling y'all, do it today, people. Definitely do it today.
Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the gamers that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Keith, you talked about it, man. The home court advantage used to be a big deal for the 76ers. But as of late, these last couple of seasons, not so much. As you talked about, they've already lost a few games here this season on their home floor. They haven't been able to get it together between Washington, New York, Milwaukee, and San Antonio. Those 4 games that they lost, and they beat the Indiana Pacers. An opportunity again with some home games this week. But where has that home court advantage gone? The fans are still there. The sellout crowd is still there. What has happened to the 76ers? Why do you think they have not been able to perform at the same level that they have in the past, where they were so dominant at home?
That's a great question, man. And it's, the arena is still popping. It's still a tough place. Well, it's still a live place to play. I can't say a tough place to play. I don't know, man. I think that, I just don't understand. I don't know. That's is a really tough question, D. I think that a lot, like the last couple of years, 2 things that we have to factor in is, last year they struggled because they didn't have a point guard. They didn't have Ben Simmons. They're trying to figure things out. Excuse me. And you can make the same, not excuse, but you can come up with the same reasoning this year. You look at certain guys, they're still trying to figure it out. I honestly think that the games that they would have lost, they probably would have lost anywhere this year. I mean, you go small ball the second time around against Washington. I feel like if they'd have played the first game here, they would have won that one just because Washington was surprised. But then 2 days later, they would have lost, right? And I also feel like some of the blunders that they made in the last game and Friday night's game against the Knicks, they would have definitely lost that game in New York, right? Um, so it's tough. I feel like that these guys is not like a normal group. Is that this team is still trying to gel, and some of these losses would have been things that they lost before. But it is kind of crazy how especially Brett Brown's last year, they were horrible on the road, but they were great. They had the best record at home, and right now they have the worst record at home. So is a little mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, because that year that you're talking about with Brett Brown, I'm just guessing. I'm trying to look it up right now, but I think it was like 37-4 or something like that at home, and they couldn't buy a win on the road. Last season, they were fantastic on the road, but not as tough at home as we're so used to with this basketball team. So I don't know what it is. I really don't. Why it's not? They always talk about how great things are with the team. I mean, when the fans show up as we talked about, everything in house seems to be perfectly fine. They just don't really protect home floor like the home floor court advantage like they used to for this basketball team. And it's very interesting to me as to why that is the case. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I'm so used to them being able to play at home, and we look at it, Keith, and say, all right, yeah, we can count that as a win. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's no slight on the opposition. It's just more of, this is what it has been. This is what we're used to. Even if they lose them, it's going to be competitive. And right now, as you said, they are 1-4 so far at home, and that's just not going to cut it. They're going to have to figure out something to get back to where they were when it came to being at home and being on the floor. I think they were 24-17 last season, the 21-22 year, Keith. And yeah, that's just something. A 51-31 record, 24-17 in 21-22. That's just something that's going to have to change. And when you talk about Embiid maybe missing some games, and Harden missing games, and Ben Simmons not being there, Harris or Maxey, if they're not going to be there for, let's just say, a game or two here and there, it's just not going to cut it, man. It really isn't. They have to find ways. That's why you have home games, to have that advantage. Teams are tough. They're going to come in your house and they're going to come after you. You're no longer a surprise. After 5 seasons, you are a good basketball team, especially on home. They know that it's not going to be easy. The Sixers have to get back to making sure they protect their home floor. All right. All right. Speaking of home floor, the Phoenix Suns, they come to town, begin a 4-game road trip, and they start in Philadelphia tonight, Monday night, at the Penn Medicine Court at the Center. And we need to preview the game as the Sixers and Suns go at it tonight back here in Philadelphia. We'll get into it next. Final segment right here, Locked On 76ers. Welcome back. You are Locked On 76ers. That's Keith Pompey. I'm Devon Givens. Keith, Sixers now at 4-6, 10 games in. They host the Phoenix Suns tonight. Suns have the best record in the Western Conference as of today. And we look at them, man, and we get ready for things. Actually, you know what? The Jazz and the Clippers last night. Yeah, so the Suns right now, man, one of the top teams in the Western Conference. Here are a few things about the Suns. There without Cam Johnson, just had their starting other starting forward who is going to be out after having meniscus knee surgery. So he's going to be out for a little bit. He was starting because the Suns decided to give him the starting spot. The only problem there is you say, okay, cool. A young guy has stepped up and he's deserving of a starting role and an opportunity there for him to really spread his wings. Jay Crowder is going to come off the bench. Well, Jay Crowder decided that he did not want to come off the bench. He wanted a new contract, and he has not played for the Suns all season. As a matter of fact, he has been away from the team, and they are currently seeking a trade for the longtime veteran swingman that the Suns no longer have on the floor. So right now, I don't know who's going to be the other starter for this basketball team. Maybe Damian Lee, something like that. The Drexel product, who is now with the Suns after winning a championship with the Golden State Warriors a season ago. They are the same type of basketball team we've seen over the last couple of seasons, but now they're going to be without two of their better players on the wing. One to injury and one due to the fact that he is currently seeking a trade away from Phoenix.
Yeah, it's funny. Like if you go by their game notes, they say Torrey Craig
Oh
is
yeah,
going.
I didn't even think about that. Yep,
Yeah,
Torrey Craig will probably get the start.
yeah,
Yep.
he'll probably get the start. And but I'm really impressed with this Phoenix Suns team because you look at it, they're 7-2. Their two losses came to the Portland Trailblazers, right?
Yep.
And they lost the first game 113 to 111. They
Overtime.
lost the second game, in overtime. The second game 108 to 106. Well, unfortunately for the Trailblazers, it was a 2-game series, and they came back and put it on the Blazers. Right? They beat them 102 to 82 the second time, and that was what's the day?
That
Well,
was on Saturday.
yeah, that was on Saturday. And I'm looking at this team right now, and we talk about, to me, this is a quintessential team. You have Chris Paul, who's, in his 17th season, but he's still like the league leader in assists, right? So you got Chris Paul averaging a double-double, 10.3 points and 10.2 assists. You have Devin Booker, who's averaging 27 points a game, right? And a 5.1 assists, 6'5" guard. And then you have, Aiden, a little, he might be, some people may say he's a little disappointed, but he's averaging 15.5 points, 7.9 rebounds. And then they have your cousin. And, I don't want to put it out there, but that's your cousin who's one of the top defenders in the league. And he's averaging 14.9 points, one block, 1.1 blocks, and, one steal. So he's one of the top defenders in the league. So when you look at this team, and we're not even getting into the bench, we're just talking about the starting lineup. I mean, they got a great facilitator, a big who can run to the rim and do what he can do. They have one of the league's best scorers and one of the top defenders. And, this is when I think of the Suns, I think of when the Sixers played the Milwaukee Bucks and when they played the Boston Celtics early on. These are the teams where you say to yourself, okay, we're going to really find out how good you are. It's not like playing the Knicks. It's not like playing Washington, and it's not like playing Chicago. Chicago's a good team, but I look at the Phoenix Suns as one of those upper echelon elite teams in the NBA.
And the interesting part about the Suns, Keith, in terms of this matchup tonight and just overall coming into the season, of course, a lot of people felt they would take a bit of a step back because of the Ayton Monty Williams dynamic, where they both revealed that they didn't talk the entire offseason. Ayton signed an offer sheet with the Indiana Pacers. The Suns matched it. So some drama there. Chris Paul with his age. Then the Jay Crowder part came in a little bit later as far as training camp came along, and felt like things would go the other direction, especially with the Golden State Warriors coming back. They're going to be good. Other teams like the Denver Nuggets making some really good acquisitions this offseason and what that team would be. But right now, as you mentioned, they've been playing pretty good. I mean, for game one, it was close. It was a very close win over the Dallas Mavericks in Phoenix, and they were able to escape that one and pick up the win. And since then, Their only hiccups were to the Portland Trailblazers, as you talked about, one in overtime, and then the back-to-back that they had in Phoenix on Friday and Saturday, taking on the Portland Trailblazers. And other than that, they've looked pretty good. They really have. Despite all of those things, they've looked pretty good. So we already know that they're well coached. And as you talked about, they have a balanced starting lineup and some pretty good reserves also for this basketball team. So we'll see, man. We'll see how it goes. So when you look at the Sixers and matching up against them, Keith, top team in the West right now, how do you look at this matchup tonight with the Sixers and Embiid looking to be back on the floor against Ayton, and then you match it up every other way? I'm looking at Chris Paul running around a bit with Tyrese Maxey, Devin Booker on DeAnthony Melton, and then you have the other two spots with Craig and Mikal with the wings that the Sixers have in terms of PJ Tucker and Tobias Harris.
I don't like the matchup for the Sixers. I mean, I'm to a point where I think that I just don't like the matchup. I mean, when you look at it, I'm looking at the point guard position. They win the point guard spot, right? And no matter who it is, Maxey or Melton, right? I honestly think that when you look at the two guard spot, they win that too. I mean, Tyrese Maxey is playing his butt off. He's ascended, but he's not on Devin Booker's level, right? We talk about Torrey Craig, so he's just like a plug-in guy right now, right?
Yeah.
But then when you look at, even defenders, like, I mean, we talk about Mikal, he's a guy that we talk about defending, but he can also score. He can shoot. He could get some buckets, right? So the only position I see them winning, I see them probably whoever going up against.
Yeah.
Like huh?
At the center position?
Well, they got that. The Sixers got that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Embiid is coming back. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now here's my thing. Like, to me personally, like, I like Melton. I do. But I don't know if I could be just going out here because then you losing another ball handler. But when I know that this guy Booker is going to give people the business, it's one of those things where I'm trying to put Matisse on him as much as possible. You know what I mean? Like, until match minutes for minutes or something like that. Now, again, you're losing ball handling, and I get all that, but I'm just saying this guy is known for lighting it up against the Sixers. And last year, Matisse had some success against him. You know what I mean? Now, Book got off in the fourth quarter a little bit, but up until then, Matisse was shutting them down. So it's just one of those. But then they like the two guards. And when you look at Tyrese right now, he's still more of a two guard than he is a point guard.
100%. Yeah.
So it's hard saying, okay, I'm just going to have you running point. You understand what I'm saying? So even though they're going to run everything through Joel, but it's just, to me, like, this is just a bad matchup for the 76ers right now.
So as far as the defensive thing goes with Thibault, I would keep the lineup as is, the starting five going forward. My opinion, Melton will be my starter going forward. No situational thing. It's just more of when the other guys come in, maybe you substitute a little bit differently, a little quicker. But this is the five, and Melton's going to have to start off on Booker. He gives up height, but he definitely has good hands and good feet to slide with him, and at least not allow him to just get to those spots and make those shots. But he's elite at doing so. Booker is. So that's going to be a tough matchup. Maxey and Paul. Paul hasn't been, just from watching him, he's looking to share the basketball this early in the season right now. I think he's trying to pace himself. At least that's how I see it. But he will take his shots, especially if you feel like he has an advantage. And Tyrese, we know, is not there yet defensively, where Chris Paul will have his moments. And then on the other side, when you look at that, yeah, I mean, that's where their defensive stuff is going to come from Mikal and Craig on the wing, trying to slow them down. Chris Paul will give the effort on the other end defensively, but I kind of think Booker will be more on him. But one other thing is they switch on everything. Everybody switches. So that's going to be the interesting part of it. They don't allow themselves to get caught on, let's say, a big guy like Embiid or Jokic too often, but everything else on the perimeter, they switch. So we'll see what they can do in trying to keep the Phoenix Suns off balance, but they're so good at it. It doesn't typically work for a lot of teams because Booker's a much better defender than he used to be. He's more willing. Chris Paul, as we know, has already been an all-NBA defensive player. Torrey Craig, to your point, is just a plug-and-play type of player. I'm not saying he's coming in and he's going to be Jay Crowder defensively right away, but he can defend a little bit. He's a two-way guy who can score a little bit, also known for his hustle stats and his hustle play on the other end defensively. So watch out for that. They do switch a lot, and I'm sure that's being talked about as far as the coaches go and putting together the game plan against the Phoenix Suns. They like to run, so you can try to match their running with your running, but you got to be on your toes and make sure we've seen it where we've talked about it plenty of times, Keith, where the fast break points have been a problem for the Sixers. Look for that tonight to try to combat that a little bit and at least try to match Phoenix in that game tonight.
Yeah. It's gonna be eye opening.
Should be a fun one. And well, this one was fun, and we thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, where you get the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available in the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Keith, do you mind letting everybody know where they can find us going forward?
Yeah, like Dee said, wherever you get your podcast, you can make sure you get this podcast. But when you go to our YouTube channel, make sure you make sure you click onto the Liberty Bell and you become a new subscriber. Now I'm gonna tell you this: D won't be on air tonight, so he'll be at the game, but he won't be on air tonight, so you won't be able to listen to him. But starting tomorrow from 6 to 10 p.m., the Divine Giving Show on 97.5 FM. That's something you don't even have to be a listener in this area to get it. You could go online, you type it up, and you can listen to it that way. But also after the game, we're going to have our podcast, so you can get that for tomorrow morning. But you can also follow D on Twitter at DivineG975, I said before. You can follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers, and you can read my stuff in the Philadelphia Inquirer, inquirer.com. And that's Inquirer with an I.
All right. Well, listen, Keith, I'll see you later, man. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk later on. And thank you, everybody, for checking in, of course, as we start this week off. Should be a fun one. Thank you.
See y'all. Peace.